When life starts to shake around you, when things that used to make sense start falling apart, that's not always an attack. It's often an announcement. The announcement that God is trying to get your attention. You've been praying for breakthrough, for direction, for elevation, but you didn't expect it to come wrapped in chaos. That's the thing about divine communication. It doesn't always sound like a voice. It looks like movement. It shows up as disruption. God will interrupt your comfort to command your growth, because the truth is you can't expand and ease. Growth and comfort cannot coexist. When you start to feel that frustration, that uneasy energy that keeps you awake at night, that's God stirring the water. He's saying, I can't bless what you're not willing to move from. The disruption is not meant to destroy you. It's designed to develop you. You think you're losing something, but in reality, God's removing the limits you placed on yourself. He knows that if he left you comfortable, you'd settle. You'd convince yourself that where you are is enough, that the level you've reached is all there is. But God didn't create you for average. He created you for assignment. He doesn't allow you to stay in places that make you small. That disappointment that hit you out of nowhere, that opportunity that slipped through your fingers, that was heaven saying, you've outgrown this. You might be praying for peace, but God's giving you pressure, because pressure creates power. Diamonds are formed under intensity. If everything stayed easy, you'd never develop resilience. You'd never strengthen your faith. You'd never build spiritual muscle. So when life starts shaking, when plans collapse, when doors shut, don't panic, pay attention. Every disruption has a message. God doesn't always send angels to talk to you. Sometimes he sends frustration, endings, and unexpected shifts to push you toward your next chapter. Think about how often people say, I just feel like something's changing, but I can't explain it. That's not random. That's a sign. The reason it feels uncomfortable is because you're trying to hold on to what God is trying to release. He's not being cruel. He's being strategic. You can't carry old patterns into new seasons. You can't bring yesterday's mindset into tomorrow's miracle. God will shut down environments that no longer serve your purpose. He will make certain things unbearable so you have no choice but to move. The people that suddenly drift away, the plans that stop working, the path that used to flow but now feels blocked. Those are all divine disruptions designed to redirect you. You see, we often ask for God's guidance, but when he answers by shaking the ground under our feet, we resist. We think something went wrong. But sometimes what feels like a breakdown is actually a breakthrough under construction. You prayed for growth and he sent change. You prayed for wisdom and he sent experience. You prayed for strength and he sent struggle. God doesn't give you what's easy. He gives you what's necessary. Every time he allows disruption, it's because he's protecting you from stagnation. When things start falling apart, the natural instinct is to fix them. But maybe it's not supposed to be fixed. Maybe it's supposed to fall. God can't build the new until the old collapses. He'll shake the foundation until everything fake, everything temporary, everything toxic breaks away, because what he's preparing for you requires room. You can't receive the next blessing while clinging to the last season's structure. He will remove what you think you need so he can reveal what you truly need. When you look at every major shift in your life, you'll notice it began with a disruption. The job you lost, the person who walked away, the deal that failed, those weren't the end. They were the invitation to trust that God is orchestrating something beyond your vision. When you hit that wall, when everything feels uncertain, you're standing at the edge of divine change. God speaks through stillness, but he also speaks through storms. If you're in one right now, don't curse it. Listen. The storm is a signal. It's pushing you where peace will find you again. You may not understand the why right now, but you will. You'll look back and realize that the things that broke you actually built you. You'll see that the people who left you made space for the right ones. You'll recognize that the delay wasn't rejection. It was redirection. God doesn't destroy what he can transform, but he will disrupt what limits his purpose in your life. That's why you can't get too attached to your comfort zone. Comfort will convince you that you're safe, but destiny will demand that you move. Some people call it coincidence, but those who walk in faith know there are no coincidences when God is moving. Every closed door, every sudden shift, every quiet season, every restless night, it's all communication. The problem is we expect God to speak in calm moments, but he often speaks in crisis because crisis gets your attention. When everything's going right, you rarely pause to listen. But when things fall apart, your heart opens, your ears tune in. Suddenly you're searching for meaning, clarity, direction, and that's exactly where God meets you. So when disruption hits your life, stop asking, why me? And start asking, what are you saying to me? The message is in the movement. He's not trying to break you down. He's trying to break you open. You've been playing it safe, praying for blessing, but avoiding change. God can't bless the version of you that refuses to move forward. He'll disrupt your schedule, your plans, even your relationships until you align with his purpose. And the moment you do, the confusion lifts, the chaos clears, and you realize the storm wasn't sent to destroy you. It was sent to deliver you. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's standing still. You pray, you push, you plan, and yet nothing seems to move. Doors that should open stay locked. Opportunities that looked certain suddenly disappear, and it feels like heaven went silent. But the truth is that silence isn't absence, it's strategy. God's not ignoring you. He's orchestrating something you can't yet see. When God delays, he's not denying you. He's positioning you. Every pause has a purpose. Every delay carries direction. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. The waiting season is where most people quit because they mistake delay for rejection. They think the lack of movement means they missed their moment, but God doesn't operate on your timeline. He doesn't rush destiny. He's never early and he's never late. He's always exact. And when you're in the waiting, when the clock feels like it's mocking you, that's when faith is truly tested. Because faith isn't proven when everything works. It's proven when nothing does. Waiting demands trust. It demands belief that while you can't see progress, heaven is still building behind the scenes. God uses delays to develop depth. He stretches your patience, strengthens your endurance, and sharpens your focus. If he gave you what you asked for too early, it might destroy you. You might mishandle it, misunderstand it, or misuse it. The delay is protection disguised as frustration. It's divine timing disguised as human waiting. You're asking for acceleration, but God's saying, you're not ready for the speed that's coming. He's not preparing the blessing. He's preparing you. The waiting season is where character is formed, pride is broken, and obedience is tested. That's where you learn to depend on faith, not on feelings. When God delays, he's allowing your roots to grow deeper so that when the blessing arrives, you won't break under its weight. You're praying for a platform, but he's building your foundation. You're asking for influence, but he's teaching you integrity. You want open doors, but he's making sure your heart can handle the room you'll walk into. He won't elevate you into something that your character can't sustain. The delay isn't a denial, it's a design. It's training time in disguise. Think of every major move of God in history. It started with waiting. Moses waited 40 years in the wilderness before leading a nation. Joseph waited through betrayal, slavery, and prison before stepping into his purpose. David waited years after being anointed before sitting on the throne. Even Jesus waited 30 years before beginning his ministry. Waiting is not wasted. It's the proving ground of destiny. When it feels like nothing is happening, that's when everything is being aligned. God is aligning people, places, and purpose for your next step. But in the middle of that delay, frustration tries to creep in. You start questioning if you heard God right. Doubt whispers that maybe it wasn't meant for you. Fear tells you to settle. But settling for less just to escape the waiting is the fastest way to miss what's best. You can't microwave destiny. You can't rush divine order. You have to learn how to stay faithful in the unseen. Keep praying, keep preparing, keep believing, even when you can't see the finish line. Because while you're waiting, God is working. The delay doesn't mean he's forgotten you. It means he's focused on you. Sometimes the delay is God removing what you thought you needed. You were ready to move with certain people, certain plans, certain resources, but he saw something you didn't. He saw what would fail in the next season. He saw what couldn't go where he's taking you. That's why the delay feels like loss. It's not loss. It's cleansing. He's cutting off what can't handle your future. And until that pruning is complete, you won't see the fruit. The delay gives him space to separate distraction from destiny. It's easy to trust God when everything's happening fast, but can you trust him when it's slow? Can you trust him when your prayers are met with silence? Can you trust him when he's saying, wait, instead of yes? Because that's the mark of real faith, not in the miracle. But in the meantime, the delay exposes what you truly believe. If you can stay committed when nothing's moving, you've proven that your faith isn't built on results. It's built on relationship. The delay also reveals your discipline. How you handle the waiting determines how high you'll go when the breakthrough comes. If you waste time complaining, comparing, and doubting, you prolong the process. But if you stay consistent, focused, and grateful, you accelerate your readiness. God doesn't operate by seconds and minutes. He operates by maturity. The moment you're ready, the moment your character matches your calling, the delay ends, because destiny doesn't respond to clocks. It responds to preparation. Sometimes God delays because he's teaching you how to value what you've been asking for. If he gave it too soon, you'd take it for granted. But when you've cried for it, waited for it, fought for it, you'll handle it differently. You'll steward it with gratitude, not entitlement. The delay creates appreciation. It builds humility. It anchors your success in faith instead of ego. So when you feel like time is against you, remember it's not. Time is working for you. Every second of waiting is building something in you that success can't teach. It's shaping your endurance, refining your vision, and maturing your faith. The delay is where destiny gets detailed. God is not slow. He's specific. He's writing your story line by line, and he refuses to release a rough draft when he's crafting a masterpiece. Don't mistake the silence for stillness. Don't confuse the pause for punishment. God's delay is your development. You think you're waiting on him, but he's actually waiting on you to grow, to trust, to believe without proof. Because once that shift happens in you, what you've been waiting for suddenly finds you. And when it comes, it won't be late. It'll be right on divine time. There comes a moment when people you thought would walk with you forever suddenly drift away. Conversations grow quiet. Energy changes. The connection that once felt unbreakable begins to fade. You start asking yourself, what happened? Did I do something wrong? But sometimes nothing went wrong. God simply started removing the wrong people from your life. It's not rejection, it's redirection. When God disconnects you from certain individuals, it's not to isolate you. It's to protect you, because where you're going, not everyone can go. Some people are meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. And when their time expires, no amount of holding on can make them stay. God will start separating you from relationships that no longer align with your purpose. You might not notice it at first. The calls get shorter, the interest fades, the conversations don't hit the same. It feels like distance, but it's actually deliverance. You're evolving, and your spirit recognizes that the environment that once felt comfortable is now constricting. That's how divine disconnection begins. It's not always dramatic. It's often subtle, just enough to make you realize you've outgrown the level you're standing on. You see, when God is preparing you for greater, he doesn't just promote you. He purges you. He removes distractions, disloyalty, and disorder disguised as relationships. You can't step into your next chapter surrounded by people still tied to your last one. God knows the conversations you don't hear, the intentions you can't see, the motives you don't sense. He knows who's secretly rooting for your failure, who's pretending to support you while draining your energy. That's why he steps in and starts disconnecting. You might fight it, you might question it, but one day you'll look back and say, if that person had stayed, I would have missed my destiny. The truth is, divine separation often feels like heartbreak, because your heart doesn't always understand what your spirit already knows. You prayed for elevation, but you didn't realize elevation requires elimination. You can't climb higher while holding on to everyone at the bottom. Some people were assigned to your survival, not your success. They were there to teach you lessons, not to walk into legacy with you. When that connection ends, it's not betrayal, it's graduation. God is saying, you've learned what you needed from this chapter. Now it's time to move. The mistake most people make is trying to resurrect what God buried. They chase after what he closed. But you can't force something that was divinely finished. When a connection dies naturally, let it go. Stop resuscitating relationships that God intentionally ended. You can't enter a new season still carrying the weight of expired ones. God doesn't subtract to hurt you. He subtracts to make space. Every person that leaves creates room for someone better aligned with your calling. When he removes, he always replaces, but only after you release. Sometimes God disconnects you to teach you dependence. You've relied too much on certain people's approval, validation, or companionship. And he's saying, you've made them your source instead of me. So he pulls them away to remind you that your worth doesn't come from who's standing beside you. It comes from who's living inside you. He'll strip away the noise until you rediscover his voice. That silence, that emptiness, that loneliness you feel, it's not a curse. It's a setup for reconnection with him. When people leave, it's often so you can hear God more clearly. Divine disconnection is not about punishment. It's about preparation. You're being prepared for environments where loyalty is rare, for rooms where not everyone will celebrate you, for levels where your discernment has to be sharp. That's why he's training you to be comfortable losing people without losing peace. Because peace doesn't depend on presence, it depends on purpose. Once you grasp that, you'll stop mourning who left and start thanking God for who stayed. When God disconnects you, he's also disconnecting you from old versions of yourself. Some relationships are rooted in the person you used to be. And as you grow, those bonds no longer fit. You can't evolve while surrounded by reminders of your past habits, your past insecurities, your past comfort zones. Growth demands separation. You can't become who God called you to be while staying connected to who you were. That's why separation often feels personal. It's because it's tied to transformation. Every goodbye is making room for a better version of you to rise. And don't misunderstand, disconnection doesn't always mean conflict. Sometimes God ends things peacefully. There's no argument, no betrayal, no big fallout, just silence. That's how you know it's him. The season just shifts. You stop fitting in where you used to. The conversations that once inspired you now drain you. The things that once entertained you now bore you. That's how God lets you know your assignment in that environment is complete. And if you ignore that signal, he'll start applying pressure until you move. It's not always easy to accept divine disconnection because the heart remembers what the spirit has released. You'll miss them. You'll reminisce, but you must remember you can't stay loyal to what God has left. If you keep holding on, you'll delay your own growth. You'll stay stuck in circles that keep you small. God wants to expand your vision, but he can't do it while you're surrounded by voices that limit it. That's why disconnection is not loss, it's alignment. He's aligning your life with his plan, not your comfort. And as those disconnections happen, don't be surprised when new people start appearing, people who speak life into you, who challenge you to grow, who see potential instead of problems. That's God showing you why the separation had to happen, because the right people can't reach you while you're still holding space for the wrong ones. He'll never let you walk alone. He'll just change who walks with you. So when relationships end, when people leave, when distance replaces closeness, don't fight it. Every divine disconnection is God saying, this next level is too important for you to take the wrong energy with you. You're not being abandoned. You're being advanced. What feels like emptiness right now is actually expansion. God's not taking something away. He's clearing the path for what's about to come. There's a moment when something starts to stir inside of you, something you can't quite explain. You wake up thinking about it. go to bed dreaming about it, and no matter how hard you try to ignore it, it keeps coming back. That's not just ambition. That's not coincidence. That's divine desire. It's the whisper of God planting a vision so deep in your spirit that it refuses to die. When God wants to move you, he doesn't always send a sign in the sky. He ignites a fire inside. That dream, that passion, that unshakable pull towards something greater, that's heaven's assignment disguised as desire. It starts small, like a spark. You get a glimpse of something more, a new business, a purpose, a mission, a calling. You try to brush it off. You tell yourself it's just imagination, but it keeps showing up. That's how God speaks. He plants vision before manifestation. He gives you the feeling before the evidence. It's his way of saying, I've placed something inside you that matches your destiny. And if you've ever felt that deep inner pull that doesn't go away, that's not you chasing a dream. It's your purpose trying to catch up with you. God places divine desires inside you because he knows that desire is the fuel for obedience. He knows you won't chase what doesn't move you, so he lets you feel the fire before you see the finish line. You start to crave change, crave growth, crave impact. You can't stay comfortable anymore. You can't be satisfied with ordinary. That's not restlessness. It's revelation. God is awakening something that's been dormant inside you. He's showing you glimpses of your future to disturb your present. Because if he didn't, you'd stay stuck in what's safe. But here's the thing. When that desire first hits, it doesn't make sense. It feels too big, too bold, too impossible. You start to question why you, why now, why this? You look at your current reality and it doesn't match the vision inside you. That's how you know it's from God. He gives you dreams that stretch you, goals that scare you, and callings that feel beyond your capability. Because if you could do it without him, it wouldn't require faith. He's not trying to intimidate you. He's trying to involve you in something greater than yourself. The size of your desire is a reflection of the size of your destiny. When God plants a vision, he also gives you glimpses of confirmation. You'll start to see signs, hear words, experience moments that validate what's been burning in your heart. Someone will say something that aligns perfectly with your thought. You'll stumble upon opportunities that match your idea. You'll feel the universe start to echo what heaven already declared over you. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. Everything starts to align with the desire he put inside you because once God sets something in motion, even time and circumstance have to cooperate with his plan. But the danger comes when you start to doubt it. When you let fear talk louder than faith, when you start to compare your progress to others and convince yourself it's not possible, that's when most people lose the fire. They let logic kill what faith birthed. But what you need to remember is that the desire wasn't your idea in the first place. It came from God. And what he births, he sustains. He wouldn't place it in you if he didn't already prepare the provision, the people, and the process to make it happen. Your only job is to protect the seed. Don't let fear water it with doubt. Don't let small minds talk you out of big dreams. When that desire keeps coming back, when it won't let you rest, that's a clue. You can distract yourself. You can run from it, but it will chase you until you surrender because purpose doesn't go away. It waits. And the longer you resist it, the louder it gets. You'll find yourself frustrated with things that used to satisfy you. You'll outgrow environments that once made you feel alive. That's the desire doing its job, pushing you toward destiny. It's heaven's way of saying, there's more in you than what you're settling for. That divine desire is not about ego or self-promotion. It's about impact. God gives you passion for what he wants you to transform. If you feel a burden for something, if something breaks your heart, if something pulls your focus over and over again, that's not random. That's divine instruction. He's showing you the area where you're called to make a difference. The problem is many people ignore that nudge because it doesn't come with full clarity. They want the map before they move, but God doesn't give maps. He gives motivation. He gives you enough to start, not enough to control, because faith is the bridge between the dream and the manifestation. So when you feel that inner fire, honor it. Don't minimize it. Don't call it unrealistic just because others don't understand it. They weren't supposed to. God didn't put that vision in them. He put it in you. You're carrying something divine, something heaven sent, something earth needs. And until you start walking toward it, you'll always feel that inner tension. That's how you know it's real. It won't leave you alone. There's power in desire when it's aligned with divine purpose. It becomes the compass that keeps you moving even when the path gets dark. It becomes the voice that whispers, keep going, when everything around you says, give up. It's the unseen force that pulls you through every setback, every delay, every disappointment. Because once you've tasted vision, ordinary will never satisfy you again. You'll start seeing everything differently. Your time, your energy, your relationships. Everything will start aligning around that one thing God placed in your heart. And though the desire may take time to unfold, every step you take toward it activates something supernatural. Every move in faith attracts provision, favor, and opportunity. Heaven responds to movement. The moment you start walking in alignment with the desire He gave you, everything begins to shift. You realize the desire wasn't just about you. It was about what God wants to do through you. That's why it burns so deep, why it won't fade, why it refuses to die. It's not just a dream. It's destiny disguised as desire. There are times when life starts to shake, not lightly, but violently. The job that once felt secure begins to crumble. The relationship you thought was solid suddenly collapses. The peace you used to feel disappears overnight. You start to wonder what's happening, why everything is falling apart, and it feels like chaos, but that chaos isn't random. It's a disturbance with divine purpose. God is shaking you, not to scare you, but to wake you. You've been too comfortable, too quiet, too still in a place that was only meant to be temporary. The disturbance is His way of saying, you can't stay here anymore. When everything starts shaking, most people panic. They think they're being punished. They think they're under attack. But what they don't realize is that the shaking is a signal. God is shifting the ground beneath you because He's trying to move you to higher ground. You prayed for change, but change doesn't come through comfort. It comes through disruption. You asked God to take you to the next level, and now He's rearranging everything to make it happen. The disturbance isn't destruction. It's direction in disguise. You see, when you get too settled, you start confusing stillness with stability. You think being comfortable means you're in control, but God doesn't bless control. He blesses surrender. And sometimes the only way He can get you to surrender is by shaking what you thought was stable. When He disturbs your life, He's not trying to break you down. He's breaking off what's been holding you back. Every disturbance is a sign that something greater is being built. He has to shake loose the wrong foundations so He can rebuild your life on the right ones. The disturbance exposes what's weak. It reveals what's temporary. It uncovers the parts of your life that looked strong but weren't secure. You might lose some things in the process, friends, comfort, routines, but you'll gain clarity, strength, and purpose. Because when the dust settles, what remains is real. God allows the shaking so you can see what's truly built to last. The disturbance doesn't come to destroy your structure. It comes to test it. If it's built on Him, it will stand. If it's not, it will fall apart so something better can take its place. The shaking also forces movement. Sometimes you won't move until you have no other choice. God knows that about us. We get attached to what's familiar, even if it's no longer fruitful. We pray for elevation, but cling to comfort. So He sends disturbance as motivation. When the peace disappears, when the favor shifts, when the doors you used to walk through suddenly close, that's a message. It's time to move. You've outgrown where you are. You can't expand in an environment that no longer feeds your faith. The disturbance comes to push you into destiny. What you call discomfort, heaven calls development. God shakes you because He sees the potential you've been ignoring. He sees the faith you've been burying. He sees the gifts you've been hiding behind fear. The disturbance pulls those things out of you. It forces you to pray deeper, think bigger, and believe harder. You stop coasting. You start growing. That's the purpose of divine disturbance. It awakens what's asleep inside you. It reminds you that you were made for more. And yes, It hurts. The shaking doesn't feel holy when you're in the middle of it. It feels unfair. It feels confusing. But every major move of God in Scripture came after a disturbance. He parted the Red Sea through the chaos of waves. He shook prison doors open through the rumble of an earthquake. He even used a storm to redirect Jonah. Every shaking has strategy. God doesn't waste pain. He repurposes it. What feels like everything falling apart is actually everything falling into place. When the disturbance hits, don't fight it. Fighting it only delays the growth it was designed to bring. You can't pray away something that was sent to promote you. The faster you accept that God is in control of the shaking, the faster you'll see what he's setting up, because sometimes the disturbance is the delivery mechanism for your next season. You prayed for strength and he sent struggle. You prayed for faith and he sent uncertainty. You prayed for increase and he sent instability to stretch your capacity. You can't rise without resistance. In the shaking, pay attention to what remains steady. That's how you recognize God's hand. Everything else may be falling apart, but something inside you starts to rise. Peace you can't explain. Strength you didn't know you had. That's him. That's his presence anchoring you in the storm. The disturbance isn't meant to drown you. It's meant to drive you deeper into dependence on him. Because once you learn to trust him in the storm, you'll never fear one again. The disturbance also redefines your priorities. It makes you see what really matters. You stop chasing what's temporary and start valuing what's eternal. You stop building around comfort and start building around calling. You realize that what you lost wasn't essential. It was excess. God shakes off what you don't need so you can finally carry what you do. The disturbance strips away distractions until all that's left is destiny. Sometimes the disturbance is internal, not external. You feel restless even when nothing outside you has changed. You can't settle. You can't relax. You can't find peace in places that used to make you happy. That's the inner shaking of purpose. That's God saying, I'm preparing you for more. He'll disturb your spirit long before he changes your situation, because transformation always starts within. So when life gets uncomfortable, when things start to shake, don't curse the disturbance. Recognize it as divine construction. You prayed for new beginnings, but new beginnings always start with endings. You asked for growth, but growth always starts with being stretched. God shakes your world not to scare you, but to shape you. Every disturbance is his hand moving pieces you can't see, positioning you for places you can't yet imagine. There comes a moment when you start seeing things differently, not because your eyes change, but because your spirit did. You look at your life and suddenly what once made sense doesn't anymore. The places you used to feel comfortable now feel small. The conversations that used to excite you start to feel empty. You begin to sense something pulling at your heart, something whispering that there's more. And that whisper doesn't leave you alone. That's not confusion. That's calling. God is trying to get your attention. When your soul starts to outgrow your surroundings, that's the sixth sign. He's telling you it's time to elevate, to shift, to rise into the version of yourself he designed before the world ever told you who to be. You can feel it deep inside, this inner restlessness that won't let you settle. You can't fake peace where there isn't any anymore. You can't pretend the old version of you still fits. You're no longer satisfied with surface level living. You crave depth. You crave meaning. You crave connection to something that's not temporary. That's not random. It's spiritual alignment. God is stirring something in you because he's preparing to take you higher. When he starts separating you from what's shallow, it's because he's calling you into something sacred. This shift can feel lonely. People around you might not understand. They'll say you've changed, and they'll be right. You've outgrown the level they're still living on. You start craving quiet over chaos, purpose over popularity, progress over comfort. That's growth. You used to chase validation. Now you're chasing vision. You used to seek attention. Now you seek direction. That's not arrogance. It's alignment. God is realigning your desires to match your destiny. He's changing your appetite so you stop feeding on what's temporary and start pursuing what's eternal. When God begins to call you higher, he'll start closing the doors that lead lower. Opportunities that once looked good will suddenly lose their shine. People who once energized you will start to drain you. The things you used to tolerate will now irritate your spirit. That's divine discontent. It's his way of saying you can't stay here anymore. You were never meant to live a small, safe, average life. You were created to operate in power, in faith, in purpose. So he'll allow discomfort to push you out of what's familiar and into what's fruitful. You'll start to notice that what you used to ignore now grabs your attention. Messages hit differently. Scriptures speak louder. Your spirit feels sensitive to things you used to brush off. You can't gossip without feeling convicted. You can't compromise without losing peace. That's not weakness. That's spiritual awareness. God is fine tuning your sensitivity so you can hear him clearly. He's teaching you to respond not with logic, but with faith. The world calls it intuition, but it's revelation. It's the Spirit guiding you toward purpose while protecting you from distraction. You might feel tension between who you were and who you're becoming. That's normal. Transformation always creates friction. The old you want stability, the new you wants destiny. You're caught in the middle, but that's where growth happens. You can't skip the tension. It's what builds the strength you'll need for your next season. God is stretching you, expanding your capacity, preparing you for responsibilities you haven't carried before. The growing pains you feel are proof that you're being promoted. There will be moments where you question everything, your path, your plan, your purpose. But that uncertainty isn't punishment, it's preparation. God doesn't give you all the details because he wants you to trust his direction. If he showed you everything, you'd rely on the plan instead of the provider. So he gives you pieces, clues, whispers, and moments that force you to walk by faith, not by sight. The uncertainty is what keeps you dependent on him, and dependence is what produces power. You'll also notice divine interruptions, moments where your plans collapse, where your path shifts without warning. Those aren't accidents, they're redirections. You thought you were losing control, but God was taking control. You were chasing what looked right, but he was steering you toward what is right. Sometimes he'll close a door you were praying would open just to protect you from what's behind it. When that happens, don't let disappointment turn into doubt. Rejection is often God's redirection disguised as loss. As this inner transformation continues, your priorities begin to shift. You care less about being impressive and more about being impactful. You stop chasing what looks successful and start chasing what feels significant. You realize that obedience is greater than opportunity. The more you align with his voice, the less noise you tolerate. You learn that not everything that glitters is gold. And not every open door is from God. That's wisdom developing. You're starting to discern rather than decide emotionally. This is also the season where God begins to separate you from distractions. It can feel like isolation, but it's actually insulation. He's protecting your purpose from premature exposure. He's hiding you to prepare you. What feels like being overlooked is really being positioned. He's refining your character before he increases your influence. Because if he elevates you before you're ready, the weight of the blessing will crush you. Preparation always precedes promotion. During this time, your faith becomes the foundation for every move you make. You start operating from conviction instead of convenience. You no longer need validation to obey what God said. You stop asking for confirmation when you already have revelation. You trust that if he told you to move, there's something waiting on the other side of obedience. That's when your confidence shifts. It's no longer in your plan. It's in his promise. You realize that success without purpose is just noise, and purpose without God's direction is just motion. This is the point where your mindset changes completely. You stop praying for an easy life and start praying for a strong spirit. You stop asking God to remove the challenge and start asking him to increase your capacity. You stop worrying about timing and start trusting his pace. That's the evolution he's been working toward all along, not to change your situation, but to change your spirit. Because once your spirit aligns with his, nothing outside of you can break what he's building within you. When you begin to see life through that lens, everything shifts. You stop panicking when plans fall apart. You stop fearing when people walk away. You stop doubting when delays happen. You recognize those moments as signs not of loss, but of leadership. God is leading you into a new dimension of purpose, power, and peace. The restlessness you feel is a signal that He's ready to launch you. The discontentment is divine. You're not falling behind, you're being set apart.